Make a habit of empathy, to recognize ourselves in each other.
I'm Joseph McCormick, and I'm from Ashland, Oregon, and I co-founded an organization called Reuniting America in 2004, and that has emerged into two forms, and one form is called the Transpartisan Alliance, which does grassroots political bridge building work. Yeah, to me, my life right now, in my current state, I'm 46 years old, is, I would say, almost all about empathy. It's the ability to feel other people. In some ways, it's the ability to feel groups of people. It's the ability to feel, if I tune in to the national family. In my case, because I look at things through a political lens, I can feel the political tribes. I can feel the divisions between the political tribes. And I can feel the animosities. I can feel the hatreds. I can feel the things that align them. I can feel their relationships. I can also, if I open myself, I do a lot of small group work, and it's the ability to feel groups. And it's something I've cultivated consciously for about 9 years, is the capacity to feel deeply. Well, there's something I learned called Clairsentience. Clairvoyance is the ability to see intuitively. Clairaudience is the ability to hear intuitively, but there's something called Clairsentience, which is the ability to feel intuitively. And when it first happened to me, I started feeling the oddest things. I'd walk into a room, I'd feel people's headaches. If people had had knee injuries, I'd feel their knees. If people had, issues with their colon, I could feel that as well. And it was a little bit strange, because it just happened to me over about a year or two period. In 2001, 2002, I started being able to feel. It was a result of a deep spiritual practice. And that was the aspect of my intuition that opened up, was the ability to feel deeply. And then I realized that it was a gift, and I could use it to really deeply understand, because I was feeling someone. I wasn't simply hearing their words or seeing something and the way they presented themselves. I don't know exactly where it goes to, but I think what happened when I was a little kid is I didn't get felt by my mother. And as I've kind of done my personal growth work, I realized there's something about being felt and being mirrored by a parent. And having lacked that, then I really yearned for it. And for some reason, I created this in my life. I'll just share just a bit of my personal transformation. I couldn't feel for years. I played contact sports all throughout high school, hockey and football, varsity sports. I'm a former military officer. In other words, I boxed in college. In the military, I was an Army Ranger. I was in the 82nd Airborne Division and the Army Rangers. This is the type of environment where feelings are taboo. To feel, to show emotion is dangerous. And the culture in a rifle platoon, I was a rifle platoon leader, the culture was, if you show emotion, then you are immediately ostracized by the culture, by the group. So I didn't feel. I went into Republican politics eventually, and it was about costs and benefits, and if it cost 10,000 lives, but the benefit was a global economy, we gotta pay the price of 10,000 lives, and I'm just sorry about that. So I was very shut down until about 38 years old, and went into a personal crisis. I had built my way up in the Georgia Republican Party. I had run for Congress. I won the nomination, and I was very unfeeling. I ran against a black candidate, and I had no empathy. I basically beat him because I was the white guy. I was running in South Georgia. I didn't shake black hands. I didn't have a community. I had my wife and I had political friends, but I had no community. I had no real deep friendships. So my life was not about emotion. It was not about feeling. And then it collapsed. In 1998, during the Monica Lewinsky thing with Bob Dole and Newt Gingrich campaigning for me, my wife asked for a divorce and my life began to unravel. Within 2 years, I was homeless. I was more or less penniless. I'd lost control of my business. I essentially went into a place of deep personal crisis. And what happened is something popped, that I had to get in touch with my feelings again. I had to be able to grieve. My sister died. My sister was like my mother, and she died of cancer in 1999. And that was I lost my wife, who was like the person that was the most feeling person in my life, and then I lost my sister. And those two incidences, literally within a month of each other. My wife, she finally left in June of 1999. My sister passed away in July of 1999. I could no longer live without emotion, and the emotion started to get to a crisis point, and I'd always put the lid on it. I'd control it. In the military, it's about control. In business, I was a businessman. I'd built a business. It's about control. And in politics, especially Republican politics, it's about controlling emotion. So I finally went to this place of crisis in 2001 and retreated. And I went deep within, and the emotion started flowing. And I lived in nature. I lived in a cabin back in the woods, all alone. I was in retreat, and I was just living by myself in nature and just processing my life. And then that's when the empathy started. I would start interacting with people in this county called Floyd County, Virginia, which is a hippie county. I was a conservative that hated hippies. Hippies didn't love their country. They were disloyal, and they were essentially the enemy within the United States. That was the way I looked at it. That was my political bias. And here, when I was in this crisis, who embraced me but this very heart-centered community? People that lived in their heart, people that lived in their feelings, people that didn't live necessarily in their heads, plans and strategies and all these other things. They lived in emotion. They lived in how do you feel? And they hugged. When they hugged me, that I never had anybody hug me heart to heart before. And they would only hug heart to heart. And so you could feel each other. And then I opened up to this entire side, and now I have this understanding that I have a set of values like my father's values that are strong and disciplined and hardworking and responsible, and those are my Republican values in some ways. But I've opened up through this experience of personal crisis and the experience of going within and asking deep questions, and then the experience of being embraced by this incredibly different community than I'd ever been embraced by, to a set of softer values, of nurturing values, of compassionate values. And to be honest, I rejected them for the longest time. I hated the word compassion. The word compassion meant weakness, and it meant you were a victim. And my work in coming up in the conservative world was victims were essentially blamers and complainers, and I didn't have any time for them. And I associated them with people that were disloyal to their country because they didn't want to support the Vietnam War, which is really where it came from, or the defense of this country. So since that time, I've begun to work to balance, very consciously balance my softer side with my harder side. And now I use my empathy very consciously I use it in some ways to heal myself, but to help heal others. Some people have never been felt. It's a great capacity to feel people deeply. And then that's a great gift when people who haven't been felt, like I never was felt. It's a great gift I can give them, is to feel them deeply.